Hello, my friends, live from New York. I'll get Bainz on here in a second. Seems like a lot of new people on here. Shout out Circuit for showing us some love on his stories. People who haven't watched these before, just chat with friends for like an hour and kind of talk shit, talk about record making, take some questions, which I put up a post the day before, or we go live and kind of get to some of them, but we just chat like we're talking in the studio. All these are up on my IGTV, and we got clips on the LiveWithMattRad Instagram. We also have YouTube. That's easier for a lot of people. Just search LiveWithMattRad, and then we'll have audio versions of all the chats for Spotify and Apple, and people who just want audio versions. So yeah, I'm going to bring on Bainz here in a second for round two. Let me grab him. Let's see. I'm just going to send him an invite. I see him. Rest of me. How you guys doing today? What's up? What's up? Shout out to the folks on the Discord.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing? How you doing?
How's it going? Good to be back.
Good to have you back, man. It was a really popular stream we did last time. People were very psyched to see us chat, and really to see you be very generous with your time and with your knowledge and excitement. And so figured, John, it sounds like John is in the studio all week on an early schedule, and it's great that you're able to come on and say hello again. Definitely, we got to be doing more of these, man. It's fun chatting with you. How are you?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It's good to be back. It's been a pretty relaxing week, actually. For once, for a change, I'm like doing what I want to do when I want to do it. It's refreshing, but it's not gonna last long. So
yeah, I was gonna say, how often, we talked about it a bit when you were here before, given that you are basically the guy or one of the guys for not just Thug but the whole YSL team. And it sounds like basically, we talked about it last time, even though you had just finished the album and the deluxe version, you were still mixing in the studio the following day till like 7 a.m. How much time do you actually get off?
That was so this past week is like an anomaly. It doesn't normally happen like this, where I don't really have much stuff. And even like Geoff's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I got to mix. And he was like, what do you have to mix? And I was like, I do have projects going there. There's always projects going on. It's just there's not stuff that's due tomorrow, So like it's been like I've been coming in for like 5-6 hours a day, which is insane. Arish had the whole weekend off, never has the weekend off. I was like, dude, take the weekend off. It was cool, man. It's been awesome. And I like doing that from time to time. It just resets me. Been spending a lot of time with my girlfriend, which I don't know how much she likes it now. I think I've been starting to get on her nerves now, dude. She's like, I go back and don't you gotta mix something today?
Yeah, baby, go to the studio. I'm sick of you. It's funny, man. We got a lot of good questions this week, and a topic that, of course, when you first came on, it was just the sign language had just come out, and it was popping. So we focused a lot on that. But there were a lot of other questions of sort of the stuff that I love talking about, because I think it's great to tell people about what the settings are for the vocal chain and whatever. But also the other side of it, which is the commitment and how it affects your life. I mean, obviously, you've seen the streams with John, and you and I have chatted offline as well about it.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we got a couple of versions of is how do you, let's see I think Al asked, are you able to maintain relationships outside of music? I mean, given that you're there all the time, you're working like crazy. You said you've been able to spend time with your girl. I'm curious for your perspective on that, since I know that those of us that do this, it's a pretty intense commitment.
Yeah.
How do you think about that stuff, and how do you balance, if there's balance?
So I think this past year, for most people, you can get away with like not, I haven't really met people, but also no one's met anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, and it was crazy because your last chat with John, I like watched the whole thing, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. There's so many. It made me think about all the relationships I have, and like Teezio is one of them. My closest friends. We talk to each other every day, every single day. Probably before noon or 1 p.m. we've spoken to each other. But we started because we were music acquaintances, but we have so much more in common now, and we check in on other stuff too. So like I think it's really important. I like social media does help. I'm not the greatest at it, but my friends kind of do know that, like, you know, most of my friends I interact with every day over here and stuff as well. But the people that they just kind of know what it's like, and they've like accepted it. The most important person, I think, the only person that really matters for me is my girlfriend, like what she thinks and how she is, and she's been super supportive. And I don't really think I would have been able to pull so much off if I didn't have her support.
It does seem like, you know, like you said, John and I talked basically for almost the whole hour last week. We didn't get to any technical questions. We just talked about friendship and
which was music. Awesome. Like, it really got me thinking about stuff like that too.
It's interesting. I think, and the various, I feel like for people in our industry, it's
water.
It takes there's a lot of different arcs to it. And there are times when it's just like, if we choose this life, you're just in it all the time. And it's like, for you, if it's Thug and Gunna and the whole family and everybody's just working, it's like, I'm just there working. You said in the first one, like, you just don't take days off. If they're working,
hell yeah.
That's what it is. And so it's like, you have to, it's a challenge. I mean, there's no right answer to it either. I think if you have your girl or your guy or your one or two people that really understand, and they can be kind of your antidote to it, I feel like that's a really healthy thing, but it is hard.
That is really important. Having that small outlet, like every day, every morning, like when I'm at home, Mike, who owns the studio, he'll pull up at my house on the way to, like, I'm still asleep, and he like comes in through the house, through the garage. He knows how to get in and stuff. And that's like the first thing I see. So, and like, we've known each other for now. We met in 2009 when we started the studios together and whatever, so from New York. But every day we work together, but we still have that level of friendship where it is work, but you still can communicate about anything else, like other shit as well. I'm usually the guy that normally tries to bring it back to work. Like, we went to dinner the other day, and I started asking Geoff, I was like, so what's next? And he looked at me and he was like, yo, we're not talking about work today.
Oh, you're that guy.
We're not talking about work today. Yeah, which is weird, you know, like, because I'm around it all the time, so I've become like that. But like, once in a while, it was like, and it was great. We just didn't talk about work, had an awesome dinner. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm sorry, I think I don't even know if I answered the question or not, but like, I talk to my family I check into my family as much as I can, even if it's a text here and there, but even they know, like, I'm not, like, I can't get on long phone conversations every day. Just because even when I have time off, like the little bit of time off, I try to like gather my thoughts and just not like, because if I talk to someone else, it'll be about something else hectic that needs to be done. Or my mom will tell me, you need to do this, or something stupid. That'll just change my energy and get me like annoyed and stuff. So
yeah, it's interesting, man. I think it's a challenge for a lot of people. And it's why, as we've talked about before, like, I don't recommend this life for everybody. I don't, you know, there's a lot of sacrifice you make, and you really got to love the insane hours and the insane process. And you got to be able to have tough conversations with loved ones. And somebody said in the chat there, shout out to non-toxic relationships. Like, you really need to be good about having, because the limited amount of time you have for other relationships, that you got to make sure that shit is good. Otherwise, it's going to drive you crazy. It's going to affect your work too. Like, if you don't have good relationships, your work is going to suffer for sure.
Hell yeah. And that was one of the biggest things with me too. Like, when I met Lurk, it was, I wasn't as busy, but like, it was like, there's always that you need someone like, if you're in a relationship, someone that supports you. Otherwise I've been through many years of misery, because I've always done the same shit. You know, what I'm doing is not going to change. You either have someone who puts up with it or doesn't. Like, but it's always been crazy hours. It's always like, from back in New York, it was like this. You know, it's more intense now, but it's also it's still always just the way you know.
Yeah, and you get adjusted to it, and the people in your life, you definitely. The sort of sad reality is you do lose friends over the course of it, because people don't all people don't understand the level of commitment and the level of focus it takes. And I think my best friends are all people that I may not talk to. It's been great being here in New York and seeing people I haven't seen in 2 years, and we just pick right back up, because those are the only kind of, you can't have friends that expect you to be texting and, you know, sending memes to the group text on some like, I got regular jobs and shit. Even though that's fun, I participate a little bit, but they sort of understand that I'm not gonna be a part of that in the same way. Yeah, it's just what it is, I suppose.
So we got a bunch of good questions this week. I know, when we talked first, there's a lot about the album. There's a couple of topics that would definitely be like full episodes. But maybe we can go through a couple little things. There were some good questions about workflow. Mix Giant asked one, what makes your workflow so fast? Shortcuts, methods. It might be cool to just kind of talk about, about
the important,
whatever you want. Yeah.
I think the important part of that question is like the answer is in the question. It's workflow, having a workflow. That is the most important thing. You as long as you have some kind of path you're following, once you're on that path, you realize if you need something else or if you need to adapt or whatever, and then constantly adapting. So I feel like the workflow started years ago, the general concept or whatever, and then as you learn more, as your needs change, you just keep adapting. So that's basically how I work, just being organized, like how I keep multiple projects organized and stuff. There's always like, there's an Excel document that goes with every project, Google Docs, numbers, whatever it may be, but there's like a chart, and that kind of keeps track of what version we're on. Oh yeah, and then also I have that session recall software, which is really, really cool.
What is that? I don't know about that.
So I can show you. So basically what it looks like is, put this off real quick. So for every song that I work on, there's like a thing over there, and like you just click on this and like, okay, this is Bumped Her Head, Thug and Gunner from Slime and B. So that's the hardware I had on this song.
Oh, nice.
And that's how every recall for every session works.
Is that hardware in the mix, or is that the recording chain, or what is that?
No, that's the mix. That's the mix. Yeah,
that's
for the mix.
Yeah.
For the mix. The recording stuff is all like, committed, baked in, but like, so that's everything that needs to be recalled for the mix. Basically the recall. And like, I feel like having that and just being organized, and then in the recording process, having a template that opens up quick, that's not gonna glitch on different computers. You don't have a whole bunch of UAD stuff going on your recording template. You don't need it there. None of those plugins are gonna have anything less than 1,000 milliseconds of delay, 1,000 samples of delay, and that's too much. When you're working.
Yep.
I open these sessions and they're like all full of UAD stuff, and then you move between rooms and stuff, and I'm like, dude, you don't need this stuff in your recording template. When the record is done, then it gets mixed. We could do whatever, but and even if you want to do something, like just ways to do it, commit it or freeze it or do something.
It's one of the things that I think people and you and I have talked about. We talked about it last time, and I don't think there's a way to overemphasize it. Preparation and efficiency is gonna, wherever you are, whatever you do in the process, whether you're an engineer, a tracking engineer, a mixer, a producer, even an artist, like whatever, there is something about like getting out of your comfort zone and trying new things, but having your prepared template. So it's like, I have basically what you want in a workflow for creativity and for tracking is the shortest distance between there's an idea and the idea is executed.
Exactly.
And that's psychologically, and then it's also preparation. It's all of these things wrapped in one. When we talk about workflow, we're talking about the quickest path from idea to actually creating it. Do you have things in your recording flow? I know you talked a little bit last time, and I can't remember exactly what you talked about, but you obviously had a lot of skills coming into starting to work with Doug. You'd gone to school, you'd worked on a lot of records.
Yeah.
But then, and so you had a way that you do things because you're like, this is the most efficient, but then it changed a little bit working with him. Does it change with different artists? How do you think about that workflow, the recording part? I
think when it comes to recording, what made me what really helped is that early 2010, like around whatever music was being done in New York at the time, it was a lot of stacks, a lot of R&B, just a lot of just crazy harmonies and stacks that you had to move really quick, that you had to vocal line while you were recording and just be organized and stuff. So all that stuff just made me really quick at Pro Tools. And then Thug, even though it's just one vocal, just moves at crazy speeds because he, whatever his first idea is, he doesn't like to think about it. He just likes to execute it. And that's what gets ended up kept most of the times because he thinks that, like, he feels the first thing you hear on a track is the most inspiring or whatever, and that's what you just have to be. Everything's got to be ready to, like. So I like the minute I put, like, from the basics, you get a track in, a 2-track, and like this is going to help a lot of people, and I've told a lot of people when I meet them. So 2-track gets into the tracking template. First thing, there's always going to be, you have to get it on the beat. There's a little bit of trimming you're going to have to do with MP3s. It gets messed up. Tap to transient, delete the dead space. However you do it, like it should be on the grid.
I mean, getting the 2-track lined up right to the grid.
Right correctly. To the grid. Exactly. Yeah. So that's the first thing you're going to do, and then put the tempo in, and then clip gain that shit down. Don't, like, and I hear people telling me they use a volume fader or whatever, clip gain that bitch down 8 dB to begin with. That's the first thing you're going to do. Now, what that helps with doing is all your waveforms look similar. You're not looking at like a block of like the 2-track isn't a block when you need to make edits.
Interesting.
So visually, I can look at the waveform and be like, okay, those are decent. Like I can tell what's going on, and my vocals, I can look at what's going on. So I'm looking at the 2-track. I can tell when the hook is coming just by looking at the waveform. You gotta.
Yeah.
But now, if you haven't clip gained that down and you've just volumed it down 15 dB or whatever, the 2-track, because they're all limited, they're all like squashed to death. You just have to do that.
And this is so, especially when you're tracking vocals as well. That it doesn't look like the vocals are super small, because you're not going to be smashing the vocals when you're tracking them.
Or then people don't do this and end up not knowing how to balance it, and then end up cranking the preamp. So that's like the first thing. Just clip gain that shit down in your tracking template. Obviously, get the key in, and so the way I have my template is the second slot of inserts and the first one, but it depends if auto-tune's on the first or second, but I just keep it on the second now because you have to have the trim and with DSP sessions or whatever. The first 2 slots of inserts are grouped, and they're grouped in banks. So now if I set the key on one auto-tune, all of them get set, all the retunes, they all follow. That now, and so there's like three sets of vocals. So there's the lead vocal, then another one, and another one, all going to separate buses. Now they're all globally grouped as well, but then I can unselect the global group and just vocal group A, which is, let's just call it singer 1 and singer 2, okay, or rapper 1 and rapper 2. Then I have individual control over all of rapper 2's auto-tune settings and 1. So that's all. Like, you don't really need this anymore now that auto-tune has that send to auto-tune feature. But I just think that
what is that feature? I don't know that feature.
Now with the new, if you use auto key, I think it sends it detects the key and it sends it to all the auto-tune. But just I think when you're in a tracking session and you have to option drag the auto-tune over 15 times, it just looks so stupid. You just look so slow and clumsy doing that in a tracking session.
I do that by myself, and I'm sitting there, it's like click, 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 click.
Exactly.
It takes a second. It's interesting. What you're talking about is, again, preparation, and I think
that's all done from before.
Yes, people talk about. I know a lot of people who make great records in Logic, and I can't really speak to Logic in the same way. Obviously, Ableton is now introduced, I think they're calling them lanes, or I don't know, they're calling them their playlist feature. But there are things about Pro Tools that if you are, especially if you are an engineer who does a lot of tracking, and as a producer and writer and mixer, I'm doing lots and lots of vocal tracking as well. Yeah. Pro Tools has such an incredible ability to group and customize and different types of groups. You can do different parameters on layers of inserts. So it's like you're saying, I think people, I would encourage everybody who's watching this, who's trying to level up, go deep on the Pro Tools grouping.
Yeah, insert groups, and basically you have to deselect, follow, unfollow globals or whatever. Yep. And do that. Yes, I've been using that for a while. There's a lot of new features too, like the folders. That helps so much. VCAs, I'm sure, they're like, I've used them for a while. Some of my engineer friends are like, explain to me why you use them, and I'm like, I don't want to get into this thing. To me, they help. They really help me with my workflow and stuff. So it's there in my mix template, and otherwise you can just make them. There's like, even if it doesn't exist in a template, that doesn't mean it's not there. You can just use it. The template stuff helps. The the artist presets, the track presets, all that shit helps to like. And the same thing with the Stream Deck. Like what I can do with the Stream Deck is, if I have you can press one button and it copies track settings. Okay, then now now the track settings being the inserts and the sends. 10 inserts and 10 sends get copied. Now I get another option that says paste inserts or paste sends. So I can click on another track and hit paste inserts. So say if it's I say it's a lead vocal and then there's another hook vocal, but it's on a different track. Now instead of option dragging 10 fucking plugins over, one button copies them, one button pastes them. So small things like that, I feel like help the workflow and like speed shit up. And I like that kind of shit. You know, I like to like automate as much as I can, like Google Home, Elon Musk this place up.
It's great when people tell the story of how quickly things are created in the studio, whether it's writing a song, cutting a vocal, how, you know, inspiration really does strike in these very short moments. But people don't talk about the part of all of the preparation, and if you're a songwriter, all the bad ideas that lead up to it. Like the biggest songs I've ever written, all the biggest moments in the studio are all very short bursts, but there's so much stuff surrounding all of it. And this is exactly what we're talking about from the technical standpoint. To know exactly what you want to do with groups and different types of groups, and you know, like you said, and for I don't want to gloss over it because I think it's good to talk about some basics too. In Pro Tools, you can group things and you can have settings for all the groups, but if you deselect follow global, like you create a new group, you unselect follow global because there's like a regular setting. You can go in and customize every group,
insert, send levels.
Have this group just be on the B and C inserts for the entire group, and you can control the parameters, and it doesn't touch anything else. There's so many ways to customize that stuff, and it will work differently for different people's workflow, and it's worth playing through all that because that will allow you, when you're in the studio, when a magical thing is happening, there's the least resistance between, again, idea and execution. And that's really what separates pros. It's not like, oh, I have the magic plugin that added 10K here. Those things are great. We can talk about those things. But it's really about how prepared are you and how well can you execute.
There's so much shit. And like all this stuff on the tracking template, like barely any of it ends up on the mix side. Like I'm replacing a lot. Like, yes, the Pro Q3 will remain. And, you know, I just might once in a while switch between natural phase and low latency, whatever the default that it's in. But yeah, for the most part, that stuff is there because it works everywhere else, and I know that it's not gonna. I know how my template like acts up every time I like. If something's running weird, like Pro Tools, like it doesn't feel the same, I'll know right away that there's something off, and maybe it's this one weird thing that we added, this one weird plugin or whatever, because I know how that feels on Pro Tools. Like, it's weird to say it, but like if someone comes in like messes with the way the mouse is, that annoys me a lot too.
That annoys me too.
Everyone has their own specific mouse.
The sensitivity is huge.
Hell yeah, it's so that and then with the Herman Miller chairs, it's how you like raise them. So I like sit down, I place my arms right. Again, this is only for recording, because for mixing, I'm like a completely different person. When I'm recording, you need to be like, you need to be strapped in, you need to be all prepped, you need to, like I said last time too, it's like driving a sports car. You need to have everything ready to go.
I don't know why the phone in my hotel room is ringing. Hopefully it stops. Okay, it just stopped. Yeah, man. I mean, it's really great. And people who didn't watch the first one, you went through a lot of both you went, I think, pretty much through the full tracking vocal chain and then your mix setup, all of which are doing lots of very subtle things.
Never going to give it out again.
Never going to get out again.
That's it. Go back there, guys.
Only for the LiveWithMattRad audience. So, big love to Bainz.
Go back to that episode, guys.
Yeah, go check it on the YouTube or my IGTV. Yeah. But again, like, and that stuff is important, sure, and of course the details. But and you and I've talked about with John. This stuff is going to change 6 months from now. You're going to be using a slightly different saturator, and you're not going to be like favoring this one, and you're going to be using a slightly different EQ, and you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to do more shelving, and those things change over time, and they should, but it's really the preparation that separates the people who are really doing it.
It would be stupid if if you did the same thing that like, and that's what I'm saying, like what I said, like in that, like that whole chain I gave, it means nothing because I would be like, what would that say about me if a year from now I'm using that same shit? You know, like why haven't I advanced? Like I'm not gonna be using the same shit. I'm constantly evolve. Like again, like we said, that what you're doing and the philosophy behind what you're doing stays the same. But again, your years might change. Your things change.
Absolutely, man.
And that's good.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of questions on the chat here for new folks. We have full episodes talking about harmonic saturation, about gain staging, me and John talking, but there's clips as well with coming up with Bainz and others. There's lots of info out there, so we could get into that. But as we said, we've talked about a lot of this stuff before, so please check it out on the YouTube or IGTV.
I was actually talking to someone recently, and like I just work like that by default, and I have been working like that. And I listen to people like you and John talk, and I think John as well works like that with a lot of saturation and stuff. And that's like I like tend to like by default pick things like that over some like a cleaner sounding or like a REQ or something, you know.
Yeah, we're definitely in an era where, you know, again, we were talking about this a bit before, but it used to be that you were trying, you know, from recording history from like the 40s up until the 2000s is like, we got to make things cleaner because there's tape machines and tubes and noise and inefficiencies. But now everything is, if you have an Apollo and like a basic Neumann mic, like you're going to get a super clean, super dynamic signal. And now it's making decisions about how to saturate and manipulate and make things noisier and cooler. And so it's the tools have gone away from compression and sort of normal EQ and more towards saturation and dynamic EQ and
how do you make it
tools
sound real? And some people don't like some people don't like that. Like I've heard people talk about it. Like people say that it's too like that same project that I worked on that night. Like it was this younger kid, and you know the record sounded much bigger and warmer and more analog. And he was like, yeah, but it's a little. He was like, we need to like find like a middle ground. Some people like that, you know, like someone who's come up, like a younger kid on like a SoundCloud who's listening to SoundCloud these days and stuff. They're gonna want different stuff, and you just need to know how to adapt to it and still do it as tastefully as you can. Bring as much of your own. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, and I think it's also something that, you know, I don't know if I can actually put a number on it, but on any given project, I feel like I'm using something like 10% of my skill set, because the reality is you want to be knowledgeable in all these realms, so that when the artist you're collaborating with goes, I want this thing, you go, I know how to do that thing. It was over here, but I can take it here easily, especially as a mix engineer and a someone who's really in charge of the sonics, to be able to understand that spectrum. And you take something where you want it and you're like, cool, I've mixed this shit like this, I know how it's supposed to sound. You deliver it and he's like, it's actually too saturated and I want it to be cleaner and I want it to be this. You have the ability to do that. It's again talking about preparation. Does that happen a lot to you? Do you feel like
not I mean, it does happen sometimes, but like this one was weird because like I'm describing it like that, but what he said to me was, he said it sounds too clean, can you dirty it up a bit? Like that's what he like compared to the rough. And the rough was like, bro, it had like, so it had, I'm gonna tell you exactly what had it. It had the Wave, the Avid default EQ7 boosting 4, like a shitload, and that's normally where I like cutting. So it was the opposite of what I do. And then it had an Avid EQ with like 30 dB of compression or some shit on it. So the first thing I did was just scrap all of that shit, but then that baked in this like weird, like, you know, like almost like the reason why engineers hate CLA, because it does this weird thing that gives these people demoitis and they get stuck to that sound, and then to recreate that you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and it just does this weird thing to sound. So anyway, yeah, just that it does happen from time to time, because it really it's the artist, everyone's different. Like you're like, as a mixer, you're helping an artist realize their vision. There's a lot of records that I've mixed that I wouldn't have done it that way, but the artist wanted it that way. So the art, like it's my job is not to, I'm not mixing for myself to just sit and listen to these records in my own room, you know, for the artist, obviously. And then the artist, it's, you know, there's it's what the artist wants. That's like always like been my thing since the beginning, man.
I also find that when I do something the way I want to hear it, and then an artist who I'm collaborating with and presumably have chosen for us to be a part of each other's lives, they go, I want to hear more like this and this and this. It always does something new and adds something to my skill set in a cool way. And I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way. And then there's a new thing that I learned how to do. And I think that's a positive as well.
And it's like, I like stuff like that. Just learning, like you said, a new thing you learn how to do. And like, then that just becomes part of your, you know, little tricks that you have or tools. And like that's what, there's so much shit that you use and that you do one-off things with. Like, I like to come back and like, I feel like when I've used something more than once on more than one record, then I remember it. Then I'll like, but these one-off things that you just do in the moment, there's so many times that you work so hard, it's really cool and it works amazing. And then it's gone. It's out there in the world. And it's like, you know, you like, you forget, like, I now I'm going to start going back and looking at sessions and seeing what I did and stuff. But like,
I'm really
bad with
interesting
that.
project. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
somebody suggested at one point that it would be cool to do this, but maybe do it on Twitch and open up like sessions from like 10 years ago or like 15, and obviously I think a lot of plugins wouldn't show up. That we'd have to like troubleshoot a bit, but it would be cool. Or even just listen to like the first things you mixed, the first things I produced when I was a teenager, and like, and just to be. Anytime I've done that and gone back and checked out things like literally like finding ADAT tapes in my parents' basement, and you know, like things where I'm like, wow, I would never have chosen, and listening to records, like I never would have chosen to do that now, but there's also something interesting about it. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a cool show there too. We go back and listen to early Bainz mixes, early MattRad.
I know, right?
Costelli, and see we go, and you sit there and be embarrassed, but also be excited. That might be cool. That would be a vibe.
I'm sure my shit's gonna be like organized as hell though. I've always been like super organized, and I've always like gotten really mad at people that don't keep their shit organized. I got this session the other day, and I'm like texting on the group 5 engineers. All of them work for me at the studio. Like, what the fuck is this? Why is it still named the date of the session? Why is it the track name not in the session name? And and it's crazy because like I get why people don't do it, because if you do it when the session's open, then it's like the disaster. But you have to do it the second you quit the session. That's like part of the workflow.
Look, man, I mean, you just said it. It may be the most important thing for everybody to learn from any of the stuff that we've done thus far is you've always been super, super organized. I mean, you're obviously skilled. You're obviously a kind guy. You know how to do things technically. You know how to roll with stuff. You know how to adjust. But I swear being organized is the most underrated shit in this entire profession. Yeah, for sure. Super important. Let's see. Maybe this. I don't know. There's a couple of good ones. I think I'm just looking at the questions on my laptop here. Do you want to do this real quick? How loud are your pre-masters when you send them to mastering? People always ask this question. How loud should my shit be?
It varies. I think I was for this last one, my reference masters were the reference masters were about, I would say, between 9 and 10 LUFs.
Meaning that's what you were sending out for people to listen to.
No, that was just so that was the limited version was coming at 9 or 10. And what he was getting, so let's say
the mastering engineer Joe,
Laporta. Yeah. And he gets one step before that. So that's what he was using as a reference. That was my reference mix or whatever. My limited mix. It just depends, man. The limiter sometimes is doing 2 dB, sometimes a dB and a half, sometimes 4 dB. So it would be whatever that is underneath that. I don't really look at the levels on the pre-master. I just know what my limited version is hitting, and that like it's just whatever the limiter is doing. He kind of works one step behind that.
So you're giving him as a reference a version with a little bit of limiting, but it's rarely more than 4 dB. It's usually just a couple.
No, usually 1 or 2, like maybe like okay. The reason I would get it to 4 is if I've like mixed the whole record and then I fucking listen to the rough mix and like I'm A-Bing the rough mix and the rough mix is like crazy loud and I'm like shit. And like instead of like trying to like rebuild everything, that's just the quick easy thing. So, and that happens from time to time. There's this record that recently I did in the rough mix was like 6 luffs or some shit. It was just like fried. And we like,
it was like Skrillex mixes.
Yeah. I opened it up a bit and still like, I got them the effect they were going for. They really liked it. So it worked out.
Yeah. It's funny how much people ask that question. For some reason, I don't think it's as important as everybody else thinks it is. And maybe you agree.
I definitely don't. Like we kind of, every now and then, like Laporta will be like he did call me on one, and he was like this particular one that we did like last year, and he was like, it's hitting really good, it feels good, let's try to like emulate this for further stuff and stuff like that, because like we know what it sounds like, but at the end of the day it's always like what it sounds like cross DSP, because that's the biggest thing. You don't want to, like, when you try to get too loud, like DSP will choke it, and then you don't want your song to come on and sound like a lot softer than other ones, that's just
and that's a crazy topic, which it seems like nobody really has a handle on just yet, of what each of the streaming services are doing to turn down records, and then which ones have normalization on as a default or not as a default. That's a whole crazy thing. Which
I actually really like the way Tidal sounds, so I like pretty much only listen to Tidal.
Okay.
But
that's
like
what everybody says. I haven't used it actually.
Tidal, bro, it's a game changer. You have PMC and you have PMC mod. Like that's the thing. In a studio, only listen to Tidal. You really can tell the difference.
All right, now I'm getting a Tidal account as soon as I get back to LA.
Yeah, you gotta get Tidal. Yeah.
Let's see. There's a couple people asked about. Can we talk about low end? Somebody was like, Rob asked, I want a whole fucking podcast about Bainz low end. I think maybe we'll save that for another one, because I do feel like it would be cool to go really deep on it. But let's see. I just want to acknowledge that, because I know several people have been asking about it, and I'm also curious too. I think we. Do you want to give any brief thoughts? I feel like we should take some time and
get it loud, get it loud, get it even saturated, get some parallels, and don't. This one's important. Don't shy away from automating it. And the reason I say that is, and I'm not just talking about volume automation, it could be any fucking thing. What I mean is, don't think of it as one instrument. It is one instrument, but like the frequencies, like the lower notes sometimes need different treatment. And I just mixed this record. We're finishing it up right now. And I did the exact same thing we spoke about last time when I told you that I from time to time, this record, it had this low note that was just so rumbly and loud and just made the speakers whatever. But the rest of them were pretty weak compared to that. So I just had to treat them differently, and the impact, like now it's just consistently knocking throughout.
Yeah.
And it just meant taking out, and it was a lot of that low note came quite a bunch, so it was going in, cutting it on the, like, making sure your edits are good, and just dragging that to a track below. And then I did I checked the frequency of that note, and whatever the next thing up was, the next route up for that was, boosted that, saturated it, did some other shit, and it just pushed that bottom one up more. But what I could do now is, because that bottom one was on a separate track, I had that 2 dB lower than everything else. So now everything else is knocking, and that bottom one, you still feel it, but and you don't feel the volume drop, because I've parallel saturating it with something else.
And very important, I think we talked about it last week, and I love that you said you don't treat it like one instrument. It's almost like treating, if you got an 808 playing different notes, it's going to hit saturators differently. It's not just everything, the volume. You could even out the volume of your 808s. Yeah. But then you put it through a saturator, and the higher notes are saturating way more or way less. And then adjusting from there is really, really important. So don't think of it as one linear thing. Even if you have the waveform right, it's going to do different things at different frequency ranges.
Yeah, that, and like same thing with that. Like I even automate, like on vocals too. Like I'll automate the gain on an EQ. Like I'll sometimes you need to it doesn't need to be as bright for certain sections. So it just really just depends on how much time you have to mix a record. Like if I have enough time, I'd do all of it. So like there are times when I haven't done all these things I'm saying because there's been a time constraint. So like, you know, if I had a good, you know, 2 days to mix a song, yeah, I do all these things I'm talking about.
Well, it reminds me, of course, of the story you told the first time about the Drake record. You've delivered the album, and then you wake up and you're like, great. And they're like, okay, cool. You have 4 hours to mix the Drake record because it's going on.
Not even 4 hours. Not even 4 hours. Like 2 hours, bro. 2 hours.
2 hour mix. 2 hour mix.
Yeah.
And you know, you
again, that
helps. That's what it takes.
That also helped because like from like, you know, each like individual vocal part had been treated, and like in other sessions before. It was also because like, yeah, anyway, that's a different long story. But again, it comes to like being prepared and just being organized.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Well, let's take one other thing, and then it sounds like we might actually have a special guest for the last 15 minutes, which maybe he'll be on here in a second. All right. There were a couple of people, and maybe we just do a couple minutes on this. People are constantly asking, listen to my beats. How do you get my beats to so and so? I'm gonna give my little riff on it, and then tell me what you think. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. People are always asking, my beats sound great. Can I get them to so and so? I remember. I'm going to tell a little story. I remember. I'm going to say 7 or so years ago, six years ago. Everybody was making Mustard sounding beats, right? Mustard had the tempo, Mustard had the hits, and there were a lot of people saying, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I knew myself that I could do that. And I had some hits, I had a few billion streams, I had radio records, and I was like, everybody wants this sound, I can make it. But what it turns out is that we're in an era now where so many people can make good sounding stuff. It's not about, does your stuff sound good? It's about the collaborative relationships you build.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some times where if you have some amazing new innovative thing, which everybody thinks they have, but very few people have, that you could send it to the right person and, you know, Drake picks your beat because he heard it on one thing. But that's so rare. And I don't begrudge anyone trying to do that. Yeah. Sure, go DM a million people and maybe you'll get that 1 in a million thing. But the truth is you got to find your people and have the relationship. Because like, everybody can make beats that sound, not everybody, but a lot of people can make beats that sound like Wheezy, but he's been doing it and he has his relationships, and there's a different level of connection that happens there that you're just not going to have even if you make some shit that sounds amazing. I don't know if you want to go off that for a minute, but
see, the thing with Thug in particular, and most of these people are is like Thug, like exactly that. He won't record unless like there were times that Wheezy's not around. He'd like so this is when Flo or me know Wheezy's around, we know it's going to be a busy night. We want to get a lot of work done. They're like filling up my inbox and like hitting me up and saying, "Hey, I got some fire." I don't give a fuck. Okay, that's not going to affect me. There's a way to go about it.
That's real.
DMs, like not even half, 90% of the DMs in my thing are like, "Yo, I got some heat. I got some this thing." There's a way to go about it. Some of them are like, "Yo, they come across a little better," and like from time to time, I do respond to them. There is like. With Thug, I would say like 1 in 10 times he'll be like, "Yo, play some shit," and then I'll play it. But like it's about me having it on hand or whatever. But with the other artists, it's a lot more often. Like, you know, the other artists, they'll see me, they'll be like, "Yo, send me some beats, send me some beats." And the thing is that in itself takes up so much time, filtering these things, going through them, doing all of that. So I did for a while have one of the guys at the studio running the beats email, organizing shit, and that he just got sloppy as well. So I'll get better with that eventually. And they have like this was the first one, man, in 4 years. Actually, no, there've been a few other ones, but like the one with Corday, that What's Up, the Corday and Thug record, that Day Trips, they're friends of mine. They sent me a bunch of beats, and that happened to be Thug was like, "Play some beats," and I played that, and they both really liked it. So, and that ended up being a big record. Now, Day Trip are like pretty established producers.
Huge producers. Yeah.
Yeah. I just happen to knew them from New York and stuff like that. And there's a lot of like same thing. T- is sending me stuff all the time. Liddy, the one with the baby. That's one of my producers who I actually, like the first producer I signed that Thug was like, "Yo, this guy's hard. You should sign him and work with him." So I've signed him. So I do that a bit as well. You guys can. It's Beats for Bainz. With Beats with a Z. The number 4 Bainz with a Z at Gmail. And send over some stuff. And if it clicks, it clicks.
Yeah, you got. I mean, shoot your shot, and it's a very, very low percentage game. And I think it sounds like it's worth doing because you may get that thing, but
you may get it. Like it just like it's like gambling. But again, you would have more luck if you meet an artist and or just develop your own crew and you come up with them.
I'm gonna send a request to our friend who hopefully will come on here shortly, and we can talk a little shit for the last 15.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
What's up? How are you?
How are you? What's good? What's good? What's good? How's the house?
Watching the live. Hanging out in some nature.
Indeed. Yeah, we talked a little earlier today. I know you're moving in, you're building your studio. Actually, I wanted to ask you again. It's funny, you were talking about you're moving into your house, but you're creating the environment. You're getting the AC done. You're doing all sort of what we talked about. You're prepared for that A-level artist session if people want to come hang, doing meetings. You're getting all the preparation out, and that even if it's replacing the AC, like that's an important part of the process. I've been in studios where the AC is not working, and that shit sucks,
bro. So have I in major studios where it's like there's
major studios.
Once the AC goes out, it's not like one of the assistants can go fix it. It's like you have to call the AC company. They might show up today, they might come tomorrow, but the session is still happening. So you're gonna just die in there and just cook up. So
congratulations, though, man. New house.
Thank you.
New house and shit.
Sir.
Dude, that's fucking awesome, man. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Hell yeah. So I'm getting it together, but I'm getting some consulting for the studio done today.
Yeah,
nice, man. I know we're all going to get together when I get back to LA. I'd love to come see the new spot. Now that the world's opening up, we can all visit each other and just nerd out like this in person. Because the idea of these streams is really just to do the same shit we do in person. It's just to talk shit.
For sure.
That'll be great, man.
But yeah, no, I've been hearing everything you guys have been talking about. That shit's all like, I was agreeing with everything for sure.
1 year since Go Crazy?
1 year since Go Crazy.
Yeah.
It's still on the radio.
Huge record. Huge record.
But yeah,
that's definitely gonna be a record that gets played for a long time. Can you guys speak? I mean, I've talked to Bainz a little bit about it, but I know we're hoping to get you on. Can you talk about the process of that record and you guys both being so intimately involved with the artists individually, and how you guys how did that process happen for finishing that record in particular? Obviously, you guys did the whole album.
Yeah, that one is one that really stood out, obviously, from the whole album. But I mean, we started at Bainz. We started at Chris's studio. Remember, we were with Thug. And then Chris cut his parts. So it was probably like, Chris cuts fast. Like, he probably did his parts in like, I don't know, an hour or less. And that's like all the vocals with harmonies, with everything, ad-libs, everything. And then Thug just went in the booth, did his verse. And then once we did it, we did a bunch of other songs. And then I started to hear like, oh, Go Crazy is going to be like the song, the one that's going to be like the single. So then
you say you didn't know. I knew it. That was the first time in my career that I was like, yo, this is a fucking hit.
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to do what it did.
Yeah, okay, yeah, for sure. I didn't know that it was I remember standing in this room. I got goosebumps. I was like, yo.
Yeah, for sure.
No, for sure.
Then I heard, okay, they want to go with that song first. So I'm like, all right, bet. So I hit producer, got the files from Kenyo, and then started the mix on my end, got Chris everything, because Chris is on most of that record, right? Like, and then Thug has his verse and stuff, and then obviously on the remix everything changes. But then I sent it to Bainz as a wave, and then he put Thug in, mixed it in, and then we both touched the record after. We had to bring it to his studio to kind of bring it all together and then get it all right. You know what I mean? Because
did you guys have
on two different systems? No, we were working on two different systems, so we had to kind of bring it together at some point.
Yeah. That process is always interesting. Did you have stems of the beat and you mixed Chris and got it dialed and then brought it over to Bainz, or what was the music end of it, the instrumental side of it?
Well, the instrumental I mixed, but since at the time I was in the box, so it didn't matter where I went as long as they had the plugins. It didn't matter. That's why.
We made sure our systems were exact. Our systems were the exact same. Like, we had every plugin that each of us had. There was one discrepancy. I had Ozone 9. He had Ozone 8. I got Ozone 8, and the Oxford EQ, and I got that, and the Seventh Heaven. I didn't have Seventh Heaven at the time because I had the real capacity. So I ended up getting all those things. So now our systems are like totally compatible. We can send sessions back and forth, and they work perfectly.
Yeah,
so
and even with the summing mixer, because now I have the Orbit 5057, which is essentially like the smaller version of his summing mixer. Yeah. But I think at some point you're going to be moving to this one because it's a lot easier with recalls. Yeah. We'll both have the same summing mixer, and at that point the systems will align, minus the other outboard gear.
So the systems will align.
But the one thing is that's why it helps for me to kind of get started on one end and then bring it to him, because once he gets stuff going through his outboard gear to come back to me, everything has to be printed, or else I'm not going to have the certain, you know what I'm saying? So it has to work in one direction for it to actually work.
It's so cool to see how not just in artist land, not just in producer land, but also in engineer and mixer land, there's this great sort of philosophy of collaborating now that I don't feel like existed. Like even, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, it didn't feel like there was this kind of energy of like guys who have a relationship with a particular artist, the artists collaborate, the engineers collaborate. There's all this back and forth. Is that something that's existed for a long time and I was just not aware of it? Or is this a relatively new thing?
Artists have had their run. Producers have had their run. It's the engineers that have, you know? And
but I think
it's going to be the engineers flexing.
Collabing's at an all-time high, though. I mean, like, you'll get a lot of beats. You'll get them, and I'll get a beat from one person, and then I'll be like, all right, who'd you make this with? He'll be like, oh, well, this person did the loop. And I went over here, and we did the drums here, but then my boy in Atlanta, he did the 808. So you'd be like, okay, so there's 4 or 5 people that made the beat. Okay, who wrote the song? Oh, okay, well, look, my boy did the melody, right? So then it turns into that. But it's not bad at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, if the record is a hit, if a record does what it does, and it took that level of collaboration, then that's what it took. You know what I mean? There may be a spare writer here or there that wasn't necessary, which is usually the case or whatever, but
and that's okay.
Day, if it takes what it takes, then that's what it is. And collaboration is a beautiful thing, to be honest, because it's like it's way better to have multiple people, because then people can check ideas and bounce ideas off of other people. If you're the only guy in the room, how do you know what you know what I mean? You don't have anyone to like bounce an idea off of or anything.
There's this ideal out there that, again, we're talking about the quickness of how records get made, and it's great to tell a story of like the how fast something was done, but it's also great to tell the story of like the isolated genius and the whatever. But that's really rare, man. I used to tell, I still tell this, but to young producers and writers that are insecure about somebody else coming in on production or whatever, I'm like, go look at like Max Martin, who's maybe the most successful pop writer and producer maybe of all time. I think he's beaten some Lennon-McCartney records. Like, dude has had crazy hits. I believe there is not one single hit he's had where he was the sole writer and producer. Everything is a co-production. Everything is a co-write. And we're, like you said, we're moving more in that direction where engineers are collabing, artists, producers, and that's a beautiful thing, because there's so many. It's why we can go live and have 100 people watching us. There's a couple thousand right now that'll listen to it after the fact. It's because everybody has the ability to make records, and that's a fucking incredible thing. It's so great that you have people that are the energy of like, let's work together and let's make a great thing, and then you win with your friends too, which is, I mean, what's better than that?
Dude, we're not fucking curing cancer, man. We're making records. Might as well
we're just having fun.
Yeah, and do it with friends, man. That's what exactly.
That's why I tell people all the time. They treat this as like it's rocket science. They're trying to pull out the calculator and dial all the reverb times and do all this crazy. Sometimes it's just about feeling. It's just the feeling. Just feel it out. Have fun. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly right too, and that's getting back to what we were talking about before, and what you're doing right now with your house, where you're like you're spending the money to get the AC just right, because when it comes time, when that feeling hits. You don't want the AC going out. You don't want the mic having a crackle in it. You don't want to have any of that. You want to be prepped. So when that magic moment happens and everybody's in there and everybody's having fun, you just execute.
Right. And that prep is across the board. I mean, from a session all the way to real life. Prep is so important. You know?
Yeah, man. Well, Teezio, I know that you and I have talked a little bit, just getting to know each other. Would love to have you on and do a full hour and talk about what you're up to, talk about Chris Brown World, talk about all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And thank you to Bainz for linking us. And the three of us could do a full live and just talk about that one album. I mean, there's so much to chat about.
Definitely. I'm definitely open to anything. I like this shit.
It might be
Yeah,
cool at some point to get all of us together in the same room, and we've been talking about doing some Twitch stuff. I know it's funny. I don't know. I'm curious what you think about it, Teezio. But
are you good at it? Do you have it all set up and shit?
Do you have it set up?
No.
Yeah, because we've been talking about doing it, but neither of us has the time to actually get it going.
Okay, it's not like this where you're like, all right, let me pull out my phone and I go live. Like,
I know.
And like for me, I'm like, oh, today's the day I'm gonna do it, and then I get a call like, you got to do all this. Okay, fine, I'm gonna go mix today. Then I'm not gonna do it.
Doesn't Alex Toomey live on
see,
there? I'm gonna go see him this week. I'm gonna go see him this week.
So, because Alex twitches between playing Call of Duty and whatever else he's doing.
God.
Alex,
but he's got like NYU kids over there. He's got the NYU assistants.
All right, well, I'm gonna go. He said he's just setting up his new spot. I guess I'm gonna go see him. I think on Thursday, and so I'll just maybe I can just steal some of his interns or something.
He got a whole bunch of interns over there.
yeah, that's true. I know. I'm talking about Twitch, and every time I go look into it, I'm like, this is more involved in Instagram Live. I gotta. I don't know.
Dude, you need like
there's like capture cards. It's all over the place.
All kinds of things. Well. Yeah, and we got people also, over on the Discord, people that do some Twitch stuff. So folks out who are watching, reach out to me if you want.
Yeah, there's someone in LA. There's someone in LA who comes set it up. Yeah, the three of us can get in a room and we can mix a record. We'll do it.
Yeah,
we should
definitely
streamers. We're live on Twitch.
We're record makers.
Yeah, no, let's just do it. Like, just literally mix a record live on Twitch, tag team.
Well, let's do it the way we do.
Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Well, I think we should probably call it about here. It's been a pleasure as always, Bainz and Teezio. Welcome. We'll do another full one. Everybody watching these things, there'll be an audio version up tomorrow, podcast version, YouTube, all that stuff. Hit me on the DMs. It's great to get some new people and energy on here. I'm a big fan of your records, Teezio. I didn't say that as straightforwardly as I could have wanted to say it publicly. You make great records, and I'm really happy to get to know you here. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Being involved with all this.
Definitely. I'm excited. Let's get it.
Bainz, love you, bro.
Guys. All right, take care, brother.